Today, I want to share with you a tragic story that shook a community to its core. It's one of those stories that reminds us just how vulnerable we all are, no matter how hard we work or how noble our intentions may be. This is the heartbreaking story of Shibli Sadiq Hridoy, a young dreamer whose life was cut short by cruelty, jealousy, and greed. Let's take a deep dive into his life, the events leading up to his death, and the aftermath that left everyone questioning the value of human life and the consequences of unchecked hatred. Sadiq was 18 years old, from Chattogram, Bangladesh. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but he had something that so many others lacked: ambition. His family wasn't rich. His father was a truck driver, and his mother stayed at home to manage the household. But despite their financial struggles, they instilled in him values of integrity, hard work, and perseverance. Sadiq internalized those lessons and carried them with him throughout his life. After finishing school, instead of continuing to depend on his family, Sadiq made the decision to help support them. He took a job at a poultry farm, a job that not many would choose for its grueling work hours and low pay. However, Sadiq wasn't like most people. His dedication and commitment paid off quickly. Within a short time, he earned a managerial role, a rare achievement for someone his age. Even after receiving this position, Sadiq showed no trace of arrogance. By now, Sadiq had been working at the poultry farm for quite some time, during which he had managed to save some money for his college fees and had also made quite a few friends there. All his friends were older than him by 5 to 6 years. But they all respected Sadiq and worked under him because he was educated and serious about his work. As a manager, he also made sure that others worked honestly while on duty. However, sometimes due to Sadiq's honesty, there would be conflicts with his own friends at the farm. Although these conflicts were not major and were usually resolved within the farm premises, besides his work and studies, Sadiq had no other distractions. If he ever had any urgent work, he managed it well and always made it home on time before it got too dark. But, as is often the case, success can breed jealousy, and that success caught the attention of people who had much darker intentions. Let's talk about that night where it all started. On August 28, 2023, Sadiq left for work as usual. His family, like every other day, expected him back in the evening. But this time, things were different. Hours passed, and Sadiq didn't return. Initially, they thought it was just a delay, but as time went on, their concern grew. Then, the phone rang. It was Sadiq. His voice was trembling with fear. He whispered, "Some people have kidnapped me. They've been holding me in a car for hours, and they're beating me. I'm hiding to make this call." The call ended abruptly, and that was the last time his family heard from him. The ransom demand, imagine the panic, the desperation that must have flooded Sadiq's family when they received that call. What followed was a nightmare of unimaginable proportions. The kidnappers didn't waste time. They contacted Sadiq's family and demanded a ransom of 1.5 million taka, a sum that was completely out of reach for a family living paycheck to paycheck. Can you imagine? Here they were, already struggling to make ends meet, and now they were asked to come up with an amount that was beyond their capacity. They were given an ultimatum: pay or lose their son. And the kidnappers warned them not to involve the police. Desperate, Sadiq's parents did everything they could. They sold off their possessions, borrowed money, and pleaded with their community for help. It's hard to fathom what they must have been feeling. The helplessness of being trapped in a situation where your child's life is at stake, and all you can do is try to gather money. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't raise the full amount. A glimmer of hope. As days passed, the kidnappers reduced the ransom demand to 200,000 taka. The family, still clinging to hope, managed to pool all their resources together. They gathered what they could, borrowing from relatives, friends, and even their neighbors. Finally, on September 4th, Sadiq's father delivered the ransom, following the kidnappers' instructions to the letter. But after handing over the money, the family waited. Because, as the kidnappers were leaving, they assured Sadiq's father that his son would reach home before him. Hearing this, Sadiq's father was immensely relieved, and I hurried home. But upon reaching, he found Sadiq hadn't arrived yet. Both of them waited outside their home door until evening, hoping for Sadiq's return. Similarly, this night passed. Until then, Sadiq's parents had lost all hope, and their decision had deteriorated to tears. Up until now, Sadiq's relatives have learned about his disappearance, and one of those relatives advised him to Shafiq to lodge a complaint with the police. By August 28, December 7th, Sadiq had been missing for more than 10 days. Now things were getting quite difficult, so on the evening of September 7th, Sadiq's parents decided to go to the local police station. Here they recounted everything that had happened over the past 10 days to the police. Initially, upon hearing all this, the police were quite angry with Sadiq's parents for not informing them of the incident first. When Sadiq's parents mentioned the threat given by the kidnappers, the police understood what a parent must be going through at such a tough time. After that, the police quickly assembled teams to search for Sadiq and began their search. During the investigation, the police first checked Sadiq's background, such as his behavior in college, his friends, and how he lived with his family. During the investigation, it was revealed that Sadiq was a good boy who neither had enmity with anyone, nor did he engage in fights with anyone. However, during the police investigation, Sadiq's mother, Nahid Akhtar, remembered something. Actually, once Sadiq had told his mother about a fight he had with his friends inside the poultry farm. Now, upon hearing this, the police began searching for those boys who have fought with Sadiq. Without wasting any time, the police went straight to poultry farm, and upon reaching there, the police apprehended the 6 workers who were working there. Afterwards, each of them is interrogated one by one. The initial investigation, these people tried to prove themselves innocent, but in the end, when the police pressured them, 4 out of the 6 boys confessed to their crime. The names of these 4 boys were Mamong Ching Marma, Sway Ching Mum Marma, Dui Mum Marma, and Yachui Marma. He police arrested these 4 on charges of kidnapping, and still no one knew about the other 2 people. During investigation, the police asked all of them about Sadiq's location, but none of them uttered a single word. However, after being kept in jail and tortured for quite some time, they opened their mouths and also revealed about their other 2 accomplices. On September 11th, they began to recount how, on the night of August 28th, when Nadek was returning home, they connected to take revenge. Their plan was to keep Sadiq, beat him, and then demand money from parents in exchange for releasing him. Initially, everything was going according to plan. However, during this time, Sadiq saw the faces of 2 of them, which made them think that Sadiq now knew everything. Herefore, they thought that if they let Sadiq go, he would inform the police and they would be caught. So after that, they used a knife to attack Sadiq and attack him repeatedly from his face to his feet with a flat knife. As a result, Sadiq bled a lot and died on the spot. By now, the police said Sadiq's family had learned that Sadiq was no longer alive. Now the police are investigating this case as a murder case. After that, the police asked these people about Sadiq's body, to which his killers replied that after killing Sadiq, they had cut his body into pieces and thrown it on a hill. After that, the police went with these people to that hill, and after going a little up, they actually found some body parts there. But among those pieces, the police found a proper body only a little far away, but his face was completely disfigured. The face of that body was so badly disfigured that the police could identify whether it was indeed for someone else. However, after looking at the clothes on that body, its height and some surrounding things, Sadiq's family confirmed that, yes, this was indeed their son. Now the police have arrested all of them on murder charges. In custody, Majamarma revealed several inside to investigating team about murder case. He stated that they had a good friendship with Sadiq, but 2 months ago they had a disagreement on some issues. After that, Umamjan decided to take revenge on Sadiq. Additionally, he mentioned in his statement that he himself killed Sadiq with his own hands and even ate small pieces of his body afterward. This was a horrifying, shameful act, but as soon as his news appeared in the media, protests started across the country. During this time, people could not tolerate their anger. It wasn't just the fact that he had been killed, but the brutal manner in which it was done. His death was no longer just a case of kidnapping. It was an execution fueled by malice, greed, and envy. The community's reaction, as you can imagine, news of Sadiq's death spread like wildfire, and the reaction from the community was swift and furious. People were outraged. This was a young man, someone who had worked hard, who had dreamed of a better future for his family. And yet, his life was taken so senselessly. Protests erupted throughout Chattogram. Locals, as well as people from surrounding areas, demanded swift justice for Sadiq. The anger was palpable. And then, on September 11th, a moment of intense emotion occurred. When the police were transporting the suspects to court, a mob intercepted the vehicle. In an outburst of collective grief and frustration, the crowd overwhelmed the police and killed one of the accused on the spot. A debate on justice. While many condemned the actions of the mob, others understood it as an expression of deep, collective sorrow. This was a community in pain, seeking justice in a way they felt the system had failed to provide. It raises the question, how do we balance justice with mercy? And when people feel that the justice system has failed them, what happens next? It's a question that doesn't have easy answers. But the fact that it sparked such a reaction is a reminder of the profound impact this tragedy had on everyone involved. Now, let's take a moment to focus on the emotional toll this took on Sadiq's family. His parents had always dreamed of a better future through their son's hard work. They saw in him the potential to rise above their circumstances. And to have that dream crushed so brutally, well, that's something no parent should have to experience. His parents now live in unimaginable grief. They've lost their son, and with it, their hopes for a better life. This loss isn't just emotional, it's a deep, searing pain that will never go away. A broader message, Sadiq's death isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked jealousy, the consequences of greed, and the fragility of life. It's a story that could have happened to any one of us. A hardworking young person, with dreams, aspirations, and a desire to make a difference, suddenly becomes a victim of those who are driven by malice. But Sadiq's story also raises another important issue: the need for better support systems for families who are struggling, who feel vulnerable, and who don't know where to turn when tragedy strikes. This is why many in Sadiq's community are now calling for stronger laws, for better protection against such crimes, and for a justice system that truly works for the people. Before I end, I want to take a moment to ask you, the viewers, to reflect. Sadiq's story has touched many of us. And while we may feel helpless, there's something we can do. We can demand justice, we can advocate for stronger protections, and we can support families who are vulnerable to such cruelty. If this case has moved you as much as it has moved me, please consider subscribing to this channel. By sharing stories like Sadiq's, we can ensure that these victims are not forgotten. We can make sure their voices are heard and that justice is pursued. It's not just about the past, it's about creating a safer, more just future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember that no matter what we go through, there's always hope for change.